Elon Musk just leaked terrifying hypersonic fighter jets against Russia. What if there was a fighter jet that could travel at a speed 5 times faster than the speed of sound? While these flights may seem futuristic, they are very much real and called hypersonic jets. So far, the United States has suffered multiple setbacks in its race with China and Russia to develop hypersonic fighter jets, but as usual, Elon Musk is here to save the day with his private spaceflight company SpaceX, and it couldn't have come at a better time than the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, where the US has sided with the latter, threatening Cold War II. Welcome to Tesla Global, the home of Tesla news. In today's video, we'll discuss Musk's promise to help the US military forces develop their hypersonic fighter jets, which can change the course of history forever. The term hypersonic refers to flight or other vehicles that can move at the speed 5 times the speed of sound. These engineering's marvels have added advantages over supersonic craft, but it has some limitations that need to be perfected as well, like frictional heating and managing the shock waves produced by the craft. When compared to supersonic vehicles, shock waves take place much closer to the body of the craft. There are several types of craft that can operate with a hypersonic regime. For example, a hypersonic cruise missiles utilize a ramjet to soar through the upper atmosphere. On the other hand, hypersonic glide vehicles can right to orbit unconventional boosters, then to orbit and glide through the atmosphere to reach predetermined targets. HGVs can technically be thought as a spacecraft, as they are incredibly similar to rocket-launched space planes, as comparisons can be drawn to the US Air Force unmanned X-37B, which launches into orbit, re-enters the atmosphere, and finally glides to make a precise landing on the runway. To understand how dangerous these hypersonic weapons can be, let's consider this. In October 2021, the global security community was startled by the Financial Times report, which stated that China had already tested hypersonic weapons twice. Over the summer, the Chinese weapons systems consist of 2 parts: a hypersonic light vehicle or HGV and a fractional orbital bombardment systems or FOBS. While both of these parts are not new, their combination is several people in defense circles have also likened the Chinese hypersonic missile test to the 1957 launch of Sputnik, the moment when the then USSR displayed a stunning technological superiority over the US. The report also fueled concerns about the accelerating hypersonic weapons arms race between China, Russia, and the US. It also highlights the ongoing and quite uneasy relationship between military systems and spaceflight. What's worse is that it looks like the US isn't inching any closer to make progress on hypersonic fighter jets either. To understand where Elon Musk's SpaceX comes to the picture, let's see the progress made on the hypersonic jets. So far, on December 15, 2021, the U.S. Air Force Life Cycle Management Center's Armament Directorate confirmed that an attempt test of the Air Launch Rapid Response Weapon ARRW had failed. Just days after China tested its HGV, this marked the 3rd time the Air Force had to conduct a successful test of a rocket booster on a prototype AGM-183 ARRW. The Air Force also added that it had not yet determined the cost of the issue that had led to the test being imported. According to the organizations, the prototype missile never left the wing of the B-52 hours bomber that was carrying it. Due to recent unknown, Air Force Bridge General Heath Collins, the service's program executive officer for weapons, stated that the missile would be returned to the factory, where analysis of telemetry and onboard data would be conducted. An analysis will help the program commence another flight test as soon as possible. All this comes just 5 months after the second attempt to conduct a flight test of the ARRW's rocket booster. In July, the Air Force declared that the second attempt was a partial success, even though the rocket didn't ignite as intended, but the prototype weapon safely separated from the P-52H bomber that had it been loaded onto, giving the service an opportunity to evaluate other aspects of the launch procedure. The Air Force's first attempt was in April, where, like in the third attempt, an unspecified problem forced the missions to be scrapped. The weapon stayed on wing of the B-52 hours the whole time and didn't launch. The primary goal of these tests conducted by the Air Force is to demonstrate that the rocket booster can perform as intended. In early 2021, it had stated that it hoped to conduct 3 successful booster tests that year before it could commence the testing of prototypes with actual hypersonic boost glide vehicles loaded inside them. In fact, the US military is working on hypersonic weapons in 3 separate forms. The Navy is working on the conventional problem strike weapon system. The Army is working on the long-range hypersonic weapon systems, and finally the Air Force is working on hypersonic fighter jets. Problems encountered while testing new hypersonic systems extend beyond the Air Force as well. In October 2021, the Pentagon announced the failure of a test of a yet-to-be-specified hypersonic missile from the Pacific Spaceport Complex, Alaska, on Kodiak Island. This year, the U.S. Army and Navy will also begin to test their jointly developed hypersonic missile, which uses a different style of boost glide vehicles at the one inside the Arrow. In a presentation he gave where he was standing in front of SpaceX's Starship, Elon Musk claimed that his private spaceflight company was gearing up to start working on hypersonic jets. In the near future, he was optimistic that SpaceX could develop and test the jets in collaborations with the US Air Force. While it's no easy feat in 2018, Musk has already talked about how much he wanted to develop supersonic jets, or in particular vertical takeoff and landing electric aircraft, so developing a hypersonic fighter jet will be a stone's throw away for Musk and SpaceX. Team has designed the ARRW used its rockets to boost the entire weapon to a designated speed and altitude. After this, the nose cone breaks apart and an unpowered hypersonic boost glide vehicle is released. This boost glide vehicle then glides back down towards its target at hypersonic speed or a speed above Mach 5. It follows a shallow atmospheric flight path. The ARRW's vehicle will also have a high degree of maneuverability, which will facilitate erratic course changes. This, when paired with how fast it moves, will make it extremely difficult for opponents to spot, track, or even defend against. So hypersonic missiles can travel at a far lower trajectory than high-arcing ballistic missiles, which are comparatively easy to detect. These missiles can also evade under missiles defense systems, so it's no wonder that the superpowers are scrambling to develop them. As most of you may already know, SpaceX's Starships, which will serve as the Human Landing Systems or HLS for NASA's Artemis missions to the Moon in 2024, is also gearing up for its first orbital flight test. The informations gathered from this test could also help the Air Force better develop the ARRW's navigation systems and vice versa. In fact, the Air Force is already working together with NASA. The first indications that ARRW test attempt was in the work had to come on December 15 when one of NASA's WB-57F test aircraft was spotted on online flight tracking software. It was seen flying off the coast of Southern California in the same area where the previous two attempted launches had taken place. NASA's WB-57FS have taken part in previous flight testing of the AGM-183A, and this particular aircraft left Southern California the next day, indicating that its missions was complete. The Air Force and other military branches have repeatedly touted that new hypersonic weapons will be the key to future warfighting plans. According to these organizations, hypersonic fighter jets and other weapons will be integral in potential high-end conflicts against adversaries like Russia and China. Even North Korea claimed that it had tested a ballistic missile that was tipped with a boost glide vehicle. Russia's progress in hypersonics is particularly concerning given its ongoing invasions of Ukraine, where the US and its NATO allies have sided with the latter. In December 2021, Russia said that it had successfully tested a submarine-launched hypersonic missiles called the Zircon for the first time. Earlier in 2021, the country said it had fired that missile from warship. So it's no wonder that the Pentagon has made developing hypersonic weapons one of its top priorities, especially since China and Russia seems to be successfully working on their own versions, with the US banning Russian energy imports and trying to economically isolate Russia. To punish the Kremlin for its unjustified invasion, it is only a matter of time before Russia retaliates, with the country not shying away from threatening to use its nuclear arsenal and hypersonic weapons. The world can only hope that Elon Musk uses SpaceX technology to develop hypersonic fighter jets that can save Ukraine from the brink of a disaster. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, and if you are new, then why not subscribe to the channel? Thanks for watching.